Hello there, and welcome to Module 2 of From Stress to Strength. This is the Compassionate Carer module, and Lesson 1 is all about self-compassion. What we're going to cover in this lesson is what is self-compassion and what isn't self-compassion. How self-compassion enables you to build resilience, and why we as carers often find it so difficult. How we can be kinder and more compassionate to ourselves. And looking at mindfulness, gratitude, and self-talk. So what is self-compassion? The definition from the Dalai Lama is sensitivity to the causes of suffering in oneself and others, combined with the commitment to try to alleviate and prevent it. So just think about that for a moment. It's actually about being sensitive to what causes yourself and other people to suffer. And it's combined with the commitment that you will make to try to alleviate and prevent it. So it means having the ability to turn understanding, acceptance and love inward. Having self-kindness. Talking kindly to yourself and not critically. Recognizing your own humanity and that all people are imperfect and every single one of us experiences pain and distress. It's about maintaining an unbiased awareness of experiences, even those that are stressful and challenging, rather than ignoring them or exaggerating the effect of them. It's about self-acceptance without self-judgment and without being defensive about who you are or what you do. And it's also about understanding that every single one of us, including you, deserves love and acceptance. So what isn't self-compassion? Well, self-compassion is not self-esteem. Self-esteem is usually about how we evaluate ourselves, and it's usually more about what we've achieved in our lives. It's also not ignoring or hiding your personal flaws or your personal challenges. It's not about self-pity. So self-compassion doesn't mean you can sit there and have a pity party about all the crap that's going on in your life. It's so much more than that. And it's not also about self-indulgence, i.e., I'm so stressed out and everything's so awful for me. I'm going to be kind to myself, and so I'll drink a bottle of wine tonight, or overindulge in another way. That is not a long-term solution to being happy and healthy. Self-compassion is. So those things there are not self-compassion. So let's look at how self-compassion can help build resilience. Self-compassion is the antidote to self-judgment. So when we are unduly harsh upon ourselves for something we've said, something we've done, something we believe about ourselves, instead of judging ourselves harshly, when we judge ourselves with self-compassion and self-kindness, it builds us up rather than pulling us down. When we can experience difficult or stressful situations without labelling our behaviour as good or bad, when we're simply observing what is happening, observing our behaviour and not judging it, when we can learn to treat ourselves as kindly as we would a really good friend, and when we can accept that we're all human, we all make mistakes, And we don't have to identify ourselves by what we should have done. In fact, we should banish the word should completely. And self-compassion is a skill that can be learned, and it enables us to accept ourselves and all of ourselves fully. So we're much less likely to be self-critical and speak harshly to ourselves when we are self-compassionate. When we do that, we're just telling ourselves and reminding ourselves and reinforcing the limiting belief that we're not good enough. Self-compassion helps us turn the criticism around and ask, what is actually good for me? What do I need? When we have got good resilience through self-compassion, we can cope so much better with stress and adversities and the challenges that will inevitably come up as a carer for you. We gain the ability to take more responsibility and initiative, mainly because we're not judging ourselves, we're just doing. We're less fearful of making mistakes or being rejected, because we're all right as we are. We become more emotionally intelligent, happier, and more optimistic. And we take better care of ourselves emotionally and physically. There are so many benefits to being more self-compassionate and to building this skill and to living it. And over the last decade or so, there has been an enormous amount of research into self-compassion and how it benefits us as human beings. There are so many well-being examples. Here are some of them: greater happiness, more life satisfaction, having more motivation, having better relationships, improving your communication. Just imagine when you're looking at yourself with kindness and without judgment, how much you can look at other people without judgment and with compassion. That is bound to improve communication skills. And when you feel better, you have better physical health. You have less stress, and you're so much less likely to develop mental health issues like anxiety or depression. You will have more resilience when you practice self-compassion. You'll be able to cope with some really big, stressful life events. Divorce, your own health crisis, bereavement even. Self-compassion has got so many benefits, and it doesn't actually take a lot to start building it. However, we often resist self-compassion, and the reasons are here. We're afraid of it not making any difference, so why on earth should we bother? We're worried it might make us feel more vulnerable, and it might make us feel that we're suffering even more if we're thinking about it. We're actually really unused to feeling this reassurance and compassion for ourselves. We're not wired to receive these emotions, so we might try to reject them. And very often people misunderstand the meaning of self-compassion, and they believe it's all about indulging yourself, doing exactly what you want, because nobody's going to judge you and you're not going to judge yourself. As we saw before, that is not what self-compassion is all about. As carers, we are so used to giving out compassion and kindness and love to others. We often put ourselves last. We are not the most important person in our own lives. And if you think about that, it is quite incredible that we're not. because there's only one of us. And if we don't extend compassion to ourselves, how can we continue extending it to others? We're not used to being nice to ourselves. How about giving it a try? And the next time you hear yourself saying something unkind to yourself, you turn it around. What comes up for you when you think about self-compassion? So now we're looking at how to be kinder and more compassionate to yourself. The first thing, always, I will come back to this again and again, it all builds with awareness. And this is awareness of your internal voice. I'm sorry about the noise of the helicopter going overhead. And this is all about becoming aware of how you talk to yourself, the tone of voice you use, as well as the language. When you become aware of what you're actually saying to yourself, the messages you're giving your subconscious, that it will believe. When you're aware of that, you can turn it around and stop being so self-critical. Give yourself some kindness. Instead of saying, I'm such an idiot, I should have done this. How about turning it around and saying, never mind, I didn't do that this time, I can always do it next time. It will feel alien at first, because we're not used to it. But it becomes easier the more you practice it. Start noticing the good and focus on the positives. Focusing on the moments during the day and your good qualities is essential in managing and balancing stressful and challenging times. So every day, ask yourself, when have I been at my best today for someone else? You could even ask yourself, when have I been at my best today for myself? And what has been my best moment of today? Always give yourself encouragement. Become your own internal friend and support system instead of your own harshest critic. Self-compassion and mindfulness. This leads back to awareness and becoming really aware of our negative thoughts. When we're open to our thoughts and when we understand them and are aware of them, we're open to the reality of the present moment without judgment, avoidance, or repression. When we're willing to turn towards and experience painful thoughts, we can start to embrace ourselves with compassion. So many of us try to squash down those uncomfortable feelings and avoid the amount of pain or distress we might be feeling. Much of our pain stems from our own harsh inner critic, that little voice that tells us we're not good enough, or we should have done something, or we shouldn't have spoken out like that or reacted in that way. When we have stress and challenges, we often get lost in trying to solve the problem, rather than staying in the moment and thinking, wow, this is a difficult time for me. So instead of focusing on the problem and confusing who we are with our harsh assessment of ourselves, we can stay in the moment and we can feel what we feel and think what we think in the moment, but not attaching any subjective meanings to what we're thinking and what we're feeling. Right at this moment, I feel calm. In another moment, I might feel angry. Everything passes. We don't have to say, I'm angry at this moment. I shouldn't be angry. We're just accepting. It's so important. Gratitude. Gratitude is an emotion that expresses appreciation for what we have. And I've never met someone who can't be grateful for something. Here in the Western world, we have so much. And when you see the adverts on television of young children cooking for their families and having so very little, yet they're still grateful. They're grateful they're alive. They're grateful for the water, even if it's contaminated. It humbles me when I see people with so little being so grateful. And I see people with so much just wanting more rather than really appreciating what they actually have. So when we're being grateful for what we do have, it removes the negativity bias that we're prone to. So that is the automatic response we have to anything by looking at what we don't have, the negative aspect. We're looking at that first and we disregard the positive. And by asking ourselves what is good in our lives, we change the lens of judgment and harsh self-criticism to one of gratitude. It's impossible to continue being in a bad mood at the same time as focusing on what is going well and what wonderful things and wonderful people you have in your life. You can begin to practice gratitude immediately simply by recalling at the end of the day everything you're grateful for. You could also start the day by telling yourself that you're grateful you woke up and you're alive to have another day. You can also develop a regular gratitude journal habit, but we'll cover that more in another lesson. How about taking a self-compassion break? You know, as carers, we're often stressed or overwhelmed or think we can't manage, or we're never going to get through everything we need to. These are some steps that you can take. Firstly, acknowledging this is a moment of stress. That will bring you into mindfulness, into now. And just name the emotions you're feeling. For instance, this is what it feels like when I feel stressed. Or this is what it feels like when I feel angry. Or simply, in this moment, I feel hurt. And then step 2 is, this feeling is a part of life. We have a common humanity. There are a range of emotions that we feel at one time or another in our lives, all of us. And just remind yourself that other people have had huge challenges in their lives and still do. You're not damaged, you're not broken, just because in this moment you might be struggling or feeling a certain way. And step 3, may I be kind to myself. Be kind to yourself in this moment. Ask yourself, what do I need to hear right now so that I can be compassionate and kind to myself? It might be that you just need to accept where you are. You might need to forgive yourself for reacting a certain way. You might need to think about the strengths you have, or times when you're patient. You might need some space. And while you follow the 3 steps, it's sometimes helpful to place your hand on your heart. You can practice this before you're even stressed or in a challenging situation by just recalling the last time that you felt stressed or challenged, and just go through these steps until it becomes automatic for you to follow them. May I be kind to myself. That's a really important statement whenever you hear that inner critic nagging away at you and telling you you're not good enough. May I be kind to myself. And here's a little drawing that I found. Dear me, I choose a new inner voice, one that's in the moment, one that's not critical, but one that's compassionate. And your assignments. You'll see in your workbook there's an assignment for compassionate letter writing. It's going to feel a little bit strange, treating yourself as you would a good friend. But I know it's a really powerful exercise to do. And again, some reflective writing on how you might begin to treat yourself with more self-compassion. Do let me know how you get on, and I'll see you in lesson 2.